Hello, it's Miss Altagracia, and today we're going to be starting a whole new genre, a whole new perspective on literature. And from ninth grade to 11th grade, most of you, if you have been going to school here, have been discussing or reviewing or analyzing, examining, whatever you would like to say, novels, poetry, just pieces of literature that are nonfiction, that contain the topic or theme of American Dream, that are classic works, and just discuss maybe topics of racism through poetry or readings like Maya Angelou's Why the Caged Bird Sings. Or if you were in a higher level class, you may have read The Diary of Frederick Douglass. And you may have also read Romeo and Juliet, The Help, Anne of Green Gables. And although these pieces of literature are important, I want to start getting into more of like a sci-fi slash alternate society of what the future could be when looking that may reflect on world issues. It's just way more exaggerated. So if I'm not explaining this right, basically we're going to be looking at a genre slash topic or style of literature that is an alternate society that contains these elements listed here, A through D, and can contain way more, and doesn't necessarily have to contain each one, and is in the future. And within this dystopian, which I just told you what type of genre it is, dystopian society will most likely contain world issues that reflect the real world, which we are living in, into the movie, the poem, the book, whatever it may be. And some of the topics or themes that may be introduced in the dystopian society is oppression, most likely to a social class or group. It can even be to a racial group or an ethnic group. It could just be to a group that is just marginalized in the community, that is not considered to be quote unquote right or quote unquote normal. B, it could contain rebellion in the sense that it's fighting a system or government that is possibly oppressing them. Then the other option could be conformity slash compliance. People within the community conforming to the ideas that has been placed upon them, or people complying to these rules or ideas because it benefits them. And then survival of the fittest. Although this is an idea that has been created by Charles Darwin, this has also been shown in many dystopian society novels and just pieces of literature. As it's maybe the story takes place in a time period where the earth is failing, or like in the Hunger Games, may the odds be ever in your favor. The whole idea of the districts fighting against one another is obviously for the entertainment of the people in the capital, but it also shows who is the most fittest to survive, whether it's they use their mind, they use their physical abilities, they use their, just like their knowledge in the sense with weapons or with nature. They're using some type of intelligence, they're using something to survive against those that are quote unquote considered weaker. And these are just going the wrong way. These are just a couple of novels that we will be reviewing, but also these are some novels that students could, if they would like to, read and write about towards the end of the year, when we have to write a paper discussing a dystopian novel and reflecting it on real world issues. And you can use the film that I am going to show you in a second. So we have The Crucible, Lord of the Flies, Unwind, The Handmaid's Tale, Animal Farm, the Divergent series, The Most Dangerous Game, The Hunger Games. These are all perfect examples of a dystopian society. The Hunger Games is, like I quoted before, may the odds be ever in your favor. This is a perfect example of a dystopian society. It's set in the future. It's a society that we may not consider to be realistic, but could happen if things were taken to a more extreme side. It contains world issues such as like poverty, oppression, social groups, economic standpoints. It contains multiple issues that the viewer may not, or the reader may not really look, but with a closer reading or closer view is able to distinguish these different elements in the dystopian society. And dystopian society is personally one of my favorite genres. I like reading stories like this and watching films, but even I personally have to sometimes really sit and think about what is the main message, what is being told within this piece of literature. It's not just for entertainment purposes. So dystopian society can look multiple different ways, but these are like the both the main usually styles or like settings that are placed. Whereas like one is like super futuristic in the sense that like cars are flying in the air and there's better improvement in health and yada yada yada, and everything's just quote unquote better. And then the other side of a dystopian society could be like basically a zombie apocalypse. So if anyone has ever played like The Last of Us or any type of post-apocalyptic game, or yeah, something like that, this is kind of how it would look like, where everything's just destroyed. You're fighting to survive. There maybe not be no longer a system oppressing you, but maybe there's something else that's unearthly, or that is trying to hurt you, or you have to fight against, or maybe there's an illness you have to fight against. So the Twilight Zone is I feel as though it was a perfect introduction to dystopian society. The Twilight Zone contains various episodes. It's an older type of TV show, but this episode, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, is a really good one that I feel as though not only connects to current times, to today, but contains messages of themes that I feel is extremely important that you will see that is very repetitive throughout the year. And one of the topics or themes that is discussed here, or issues that this archive contains or shows, is COVID-19 and the relation of COVID-19 with the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. And although it's not maybe necessarily very directly told, if you sit and kind of think about it and look at, and you kind of use one theme to connect to another, you'll be able to kind of realize, oh wow, they do kind of in a way go hand in hand. So with this, I want to know, has anyone ever watched this episode or an episode of Twilight Zone, since it is an older television series? And after watching the film, I want to talk about what the film's message was, what your guys' thought process of it was, how could this be this connected to the real world? Have you ever personally experienced something like this, or something somewhat of it, like the elements of what the story is talking about, and just reflect on it? Because throughout the whole year, we will be reflecting on stories like this, and this will kind of just be the foundation of what dystopian society is. And the objective for this and throughout the whole year is to just kind of discuss, like the students will be able to discuss what, discuss and explain what dystopian society is. Students will be able to will be able to create their own dystopian society. Later on, we're going to be writing short stories about this, like your own short stories that contains dystopian society elements. Students will be able to develop a paper discussing dystopian societies with their novels, and possibly even reflect using this episode on Twilight Zone and be able to reflect topics or themes of this episode into their paper. In the entirety, the goal is just to kind of really understand it and see how dystopian society can reflect our world without even directly saying it, and that you really have to do with a close reading, examine and analyze how real world topics can kind of be like almost spoon fed to us without even realizing. And that's just the whole entire purpose of the lesson and of watching the film today.